Seth, did we call each other to match outfits or what's going on here?
Listen, I was feeling a little lonely. We're across the country from each other. So this makes me feel a little bit better that you're still with me here as we're dressed identical twins, which is very, very cool and very normal.
And
So good to see you.
apparently we didn't tell our guest here about our dress code of maroon purple, which is our D-side color schema. But Michael, it's okay anyways. You got a cool shirt on. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited to be here.
So let me tell you a little, Seth. So when I was telling you earlier, I have this amazing friend that I grew up with in Southern California that's now in San Diego. And I said, this would be perfect because this guy is a fan of D-side stories, and most of all, he's a fan of music, and I think has as many tattoos, concert tickets, skateboards, all memorabilia of a rabbit. I'm just a poser compared to Michael, but and Seth, you were like, well, we got to bring him on. So here
No,
you
this
are.
is great. We're excited to have you, Michael. And frankly, I'm tired of talking to Scott, so I'm glad that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can mix it up and get
Thanks,
some new
guys.
blood in here.
I totally get it. Yeah, behind me, I got my Vandals autograph posters. It's something I do. I've been going to the Vandals. They did 26 years in a row of their Christmas show that they do, and I've been to 21 out of
Wow.
26. So I'm trying to buy all those. And then the Dead Milkmen was one of my favorite first bands since I was
Yeah.
12 years old. And a childhood friend of Scott and mine actually bought that deck for me, and then we went and saw
Yeah.
them. And that's actually autographed. You can't see it from here, but so
Well,
I'm
I
also a collector as well. But music is definitely my thing. So
well, I wanted to say, Seth, I was in San Diego maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, and I got to stay. Michael extended his house for me, and I got to stay with him, and it was like walking into like a hall of fame of alternative rock.
That's super
Next,
cool.
you're
yeah,
too good to me.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely a bachelor pad, I got to say, and I have one too, and so does Seth. So I
Yes.
felt at home in the way with the, not really napkins. There were just paper towels, I remember, and the bed wasn't made. It's great. I love it, Michael. But it was so much fun because I got to see like essentially Michael's passion throughout every wall in the house. And Michael, as a music fan, what was your first kind of experience that got you into music? I mean, if it was a song or concert, what was it?
I think it was both. I definitely comes from both my parents. My dad was a big music fan too until he met my mom. Like he got out of the military, he bought a guitar. He always loved Smokey Robinson. He loved Elvis Presley. And then when he got out, kind of wand a little bit because he became a husband and a dad. But my mother, when I was really young, she was always playing music too. And I'm not proud of this, but my mom loves Barbara Streisand, so I can do a Barbara Streisand score. But growing up, my mom loved, for some reason, she loved the Evita soundtrack and the Grease soundtrack. So I've known those since I was a really young kid. But then I guess I just carried that over with me. Then growing up in the 80s as a kid, hearing all the music that came out, I think that was a great era for music. And then when it kind of
Mhm.
waned off, and I still had my passion for music. And
Yeah.
one day I was at the Warehouse, if you remember that. It was a
Yeah.
Scott. So for all
This
the
is
the
back in
the
the day.
the D-side the D-side story fans, it was a corporate record store, and I saw this tape that said the Dead Milkmen, and I thought that was the funniest name of a band. So I bought it, and I just coincidentally ended up liking them and loving them. It's 30, 40 years later, and I'm still a huge Dead Milkmen fan. And then that was coincidentally my first concert. So,
Yeah.
um, and just when I do talk about music, it does come through so passionately, and people are
Yeah.
are like, "Well, I like music, not as much as you," or they constantly ask me, "What was your first concert? What was your favorite concert?" And that one, I was like, "Well, if you got time, I can answer this for you, but it's not going to be a quick answer. It's not going to be a quick response."
We got to
And
get you
I'm
on the show. That's why you're perfect for this.
so yeah, and I still talk about it. And with me, I've experienced different things within concerts, and I'm starting to, even such a late age that I am, where I'm still going to all these concerts. I'm realizing I thought it was the band that really makes the show, but I think it's the crowd.
Yeah.
Because
So,
people
mhm.
have talked to me about Tool. I don't like Tool as a band. I don't like Maynard's voice. I really don't like anything
Mhm.
about him. But people are like, "This is the best concert I've ever been to." Also, my mother, she went and saw Kiss with one of the last shows with all 4 original members, and she was like, I don't know anything about them, they scared me, but it was a great concert. And I
Yes.
bring that up because I remember, Scott, you were as a kid, I remember you were a big Kiss fan.
Yeah, don't know. I don't want a lot of people to know that, right? So
Oh, okay,
that'll hurt
okay.
my
No,
rep.
no,
But
no, no shame on this show. You love what you love.
Ace
I'm a
Frehley,
Dead
not
Milkman
Paul
fan,
Stanley,
guys.
not Paul Stanley. So Michael, you know, when I've known you and everything, you were so dedicated. And what I like is you're a fan that goes all the way. I say I'm a fan, and I know Seth is a lot more like you. He actually goes and experiences the shows and the culture. Where I like a lot of the trivia and a lot of the stories behind it. But what was it about the live? Because I know you love going to concerts, just like Seth. What is it about the live experience that is so captivating for you that you
For
keep
me,
going?
right now, yeah, I do. And just so you guys know, last year, about 10 months ago, I flew to Atlantic City to see the Dead Milkmen, but I went with my best friends, and that was an awesome thing. But because I don't like a lot of the bigger bands, and I want to make it very clear, I am not a U2 fan at all.
Hey,
You know,
Let's
Brian,
get that on record.
let's get Brian Pate back in the house here.
yeah. So I'm not a U2 fan at all. Dave Matthews, he put that one on the list as well. That'll be for the next time when we do part 2 of this episode. But for me, I think it's the camaraderie. I know some people where I'm from, they join gangs. That wasn't my thing, but for this, it's really awesome to go to a Dead Milkman show and see all these other people who got these crazy shirts, who have these crazy stories, who just are singing these songs at the top of their lungs when there's only 300 of us left now. And it's a great feeling. And I remember what was supposed to be the Dead Milkman's last show, I flew all the way to Boston and saw them at the Middle East, and it was in a basement, a concert hall at the basement, and people were shouting, and the Dead Milkman came out after it, and it was just crazy. And it was just a great feeling, and it was like being, you know, I guess what people say about being in a gang. I was accepted, you know. I mean, I don't meet many Dead Milkman fans, but being there, it was great. And we were, you know, people were exchanging stories like we're old friends, and so that's one of the things that I liked. But now I really enjoy going with my best friends. And as you know, Scott, your brother went to and saw the Dead Milkman with me, and we were so jazzed after the show. The next day we were going to drive another 150 miles just to see him, but we were too far away to do that. So that's one of my favorite things that I like to, you know, that I go to. People yelling all the same songs that you absolutely love at the same time. Because I've been to shows where I don't really like the band, but somebody has an extra ticket, and I'll go see live music. But if it's a song I hear in the radio, you know, I will start singing it at the top of my lungs, like I love that song. But in the car by myself, I really don't like that song. So it's just nice to engage with others.
You hit the nail on the head so well in terms of kind of being open-minded to new concert experiences and just being like, yeah, the music is like, I've done that so many times. Like, I've never heard of this band, or I could take them or leave them. But if we're going to the show, and especially if it's with someone who is passionate about the band and kind of like wants to, you know, proselytize to you and tell you why they love it so much, to me, those are some of my most fun concert experiences. Of course, I've got bands that I go to see and I love, but the exploration component and the communal experience component are almost more important than the music itself. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, and Michael, question for you on, you know, this idea of the Dead Milkmen and this community. And I know Seth and I have been to somewhat kind of this Dead and Company, or this kind of this Grateful Dead community. Yes. What is that in contrast to? Have you been to shows where there's absolutely, well, I would say no community, but what's the other side that you've seen in your concerts that you didn't like? Not to go on a negative tip, but just to kind of give some comparison.
Well, let me see if hopefully this is a good example. Like, for example, I was always been a punker, you know, since I was a kid. But one album that I just snuck up on me out of nowhere was Wilson Phillips. And I don't know where that came from, but first Wilson Phillips, man, it knocked me on my ass. And people made fun of me, but I was like, you guys, give it a shot. I've been so close-minded with music. And I finally saw Wilson Phillips. They played here in San Diego. About 10 years ago, I went for my birthday. They played on my birthday. I went by myself. So number one, I'm going by myself. And I didn't feel that I was in the Wilson Phillips group, because it was a great album that they had, which I was very passionate about, this first Wilson Phillips album, but the people there we weren't standing shoulder to shoulder. We were seated at circular tables. People were older than me. They did a lot of mamas and papas stuff. The concert overall was was underwhelming, very disappointing. And I was like, how did somebody put out such a great album that I was loved and passionate, put out something that wasn't, a show that I was like, nah, disappointed in.
Mhm.
And that's where I think it came into the crowds and things like that. So hopefully that answers what you guys were looking for. But that's
Yeah,
just how I felt about that show.
That's a good one. And I feel like I've had both of those experiences where I've loved an album and then I go see them and either they're not good live or they're not playing the stuff that I connected with, or the vice versa, where, like I said, you could sort of be like, I get taken or leave. And then you go see them like, I'm a convert. Like these guys are so awesome. But everybody, I think, has those duds once in a while. If you've been to enough shows, which it sounds like, Michael, you have, just like me, sometimes it's your track record can't be perfect, but still worth it to go for the experience. And big props on Wilson Phillips as well. That's a good
Yeah.
show.
Thank you.
Hold on, Michael, for one more day. Well, here's a question. And Seth, you may not know where Michael and I are from. We are, they call us the Dirt People. We're from the 909, which is definitely not Los Angeles. It is heading east. And it's not a lot of the music, Michael, that I noticed you like growing up was very, I won't say iconoclast, but it was very different from what, as you said, like the kind of the, not gang music, but why were you different that way? And I say that out of affection.
I totally understand. And that's me. You know what? I've always been that way. There's bands I'm like, oh, this is gonna be the next band to hit. Juliana Hatfield was one of them. The Sundays were another one. Guttermouth. I don't understand why the world just doesn't love Guttermouth. You know what? I just one of those things that it just thinks these obscure things just rub me the right way. Some of the things I do like to share. For example, I've seen the Beastie Boys. One of my favorite all-time bands, the Beastie Boys. That's a huge band where a lot of people like, and I do, I really enjoy these bigger shows that I've been to. But when it comes to like smaller bands, I don't know if they just put their heart into it a little bit more, or it's just something about it just sings to me. Because I've been to bigger shows, Beastie Boys, I've been to Prince, In Excess, I've seen Billy Joel, which is a great show, and there you're sharing with a lot of them. But it just these smaller bands, the Vandals, Guttermouth, the Dead Milkmen. I don't know what it is about these smaller bands that I really liked. And that was one of the things that I was pushing off, when I was in high school, talking about like Wilson Phillips. People were like, wait a minute, you're a Dead Milkmen fan. You like The Cure. How are you now pushing, you're this weird Sid Vicious fan. Now, how are you pushing off Wilson Phillips on us? And I was like, you guys just give it a shot. And so
to me, I was just going to say, to me, that's kind of the mark of a true music fan, where it's like, you don't have, you're not boxed into one genre. You're kind of open-minded to things that go beyond what people would assume. And to me, far from me like, oh my God, he likes Wilson Phillips. To me, that reaffirms like, no, what you care about is good music, and you're willing to find that anywhere. So that's really cool. Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things that and to go back to what we were talking about earlier, is I met this one young man. He was a big concert lover like me. We talked for like 3 hours straight, and he was agreeing with me. He's like, the crowd does make the show for a lot of it. And he was saying that he loved Tool because everybody I know who has seen Tool says it is by far the best show they've ever been to. But he said, you know what, give a different band a chance. He goes, I know what you're saying, but the one band I think that beats Tool, he's like, in my opinion, and I started listening. He said the Dropkick Murphys. He said they have such an allegiance at their shows. He goes, they rip the walls down. He was like, these fans barely leave the building standing. And I was like, okay. So I looked them up. I know probably 2 Dropkick Murphy songs plus the cover they did. I went and saw them. Holy cow, I saw them in an outdoor venue, and these fans were jumping into the clouds. They were so crazy for these Dropkick Murphy fans. And then when they start showing all the Boston and the New England pictures behind them, it just seemed to set them. And I was like, we've just been doing in a mosh pit for the past 90 minutes, and you guys are finding more energy because you got a picture of Fenway Park. So that's when I was like, I was like, these guys are, I was like, this is what it's about for me. And so now I know 5 Dropkick Murphy songs. I'm doing my best to go and see them because I want to be amongst that. So
yeah. It's amazing when you get that vibe. One of the bands that I loved growing up and still like is a California band, Goldfinger, which is kind of in that punk ska scene.
They're touring right now. Yes, I'm actually supposed to go see them next month.
Oh, I'm jealous. They'll play kind of scattered shows. They don't tour. Like, I don't think they played Chicago in 5 or 6 years. But I remember one time being on the front rail at a Goldfinger show, and when it was done, like being so exhausted, once the crowd wasn't pushing me against the rail and I had to like stand under my own power, I like barely could because I had expended so much energy jumping around and like kind of almost like fending myself off in the mosh pit. But to kind of be so physically exhausted from a 2-hour show means you had a pretty good time. So I know what that feeling is like for sure.
And Michael,
exactly.
Like,
Yes.
one question. So after, one thing I liked about going to the Dead shows when I was in high school and college was after the show, that energy still continued, right? You would meet people out almost like, they have Burning Man, like little Burning Mans after the big one. Is that the same as you've seen with a lot of these smaller bands that, for example, the Dead Milkmen afterwards? I don't know. I don't want to say there's like a club or a fan club, but can you still get that energy out after the show ends?
So yes. And so after I saw the Dead Milkmen last year in April with my best friends, which is a little bit more of a newer concept with my best friends being scattered all over the country, Seth. After the show, the Dead Milkmen, they've never been too big for their fans. So that's one thing. I've always felt like they're my friends. Same with the Vandals. But the Dead Milkmen, I've met them every single time at all of their shows. They always come out, sign every autograph. They take every picture every single time, but not everybody stays behind. So there's always a group of people who do stay behind, and we start talking about everything. And that's why your brother and I were so jazzed. We were like, oh my gosh, they're playing tomorrow in Jersey City. Let's go see them. And Jeff, our friend Jeff, was like, that's 120 miles away. We are not doing that. And we were like, oh, darn. So we stayed there talking with all the lingering fans. And there was a girl who I met there. And I usually meet somebody who's, we compare stories and start rubbing elbows, which is great. But I met a girl there. She had 2 Dead Milkmen tattoos. I have 3, but she had 2, and hers were so awesome. I took a picture of it, and so I'm gonna get those. But yeah, we were lingering around, hanging out, and I felt like these are the real fans, and that's one of the reasons why your brother and I were so jazzed. We were ready to walk that 120 miles, but the other 4 guys in our group were like, "No, it's too far. We're not doing it."
Yeah.
But another band like the Dead, I would have. Another question people ask me is, "What's one show you could have gone to in your past?" The band broken up, any show ever of any time, and the Dead is one of them that I want to go to because Jerry was always like, here, bootleg our shows, show up and just hang out with us, go on tour with us, things like that. And I that's where I'm just like, that's fascinating. That's something I really wanted to do, but Jerry died in 95.
Yeah,
just missed him. That truly is one of those like when we're talking about like fan bases, I mean, it's almost like, especially by the end in those 90s shows, it was almost like a religious experience. People were going just to like have been there and to have seen it. And I think especially later on, it was even more fans who weren't necessarily Deadheads, but almost felt like obligated to experience it. And I too am very jealous that I missed that. But
so even a Dead & Co show, I would really like to go. I'm not a John Mayer guy. My ex-girlfriend really liked him, but I was not a John Mayer guy. But I would go to that.
Is that why you guys broke up? Is that the reason?
We don't want to say that's what planted the seed. But she wasn't a Guttermouth fan. I got bad.
Deal breaker.
That's got to
have standards. Yeah.
You got to screen them.
So for sure.
Well, Michael, one question for you, going kind of on what you've heard on D-Side Stories. Is there any opinion or anything that you've heard from Seth or myself, or even a fan? I know you even mentioned Brian, our mysterious third member, that you disagree with, or you want to enlighten us about, or enlighten our audience about?
You know what? For me, I really like the question you guys asked about smaller bands because I'm not the appeal to that. But I have to say that I knew that Brian was wrong, a guy who I'm really, really dying to meet and get his autograph, put his skateboard on the wall. But Rick Rubin did not produce the Metallica's Black album. Okay. So Rick Rubin only produced Electromagnetic. But other than that, it's music. We can't. You know what? I really like the banter. I really like everything. You're right about the negativity. I'm not a U2 fan. I don't like Bono at all. I'm not beating that one. I'm not going to beat that one up. But some people do, and I think you guys are doing a great job. That's why I'm like, man, it's an honor to even be here. So,
oh no, we're this is all about the fan perspective. Now, one thing about San Diego, and Seth is from New England, right, where the Dropkick Murphys are from. What's going on in San Diego now as a scene? Or is there a scene?
There is a big music scene, and I'm actually that's one of the reasons that's kept me here, because one of my favorite bands of all time was actually a band called Agent 51. They just came out of nowhere, these young kids, and they just put out a great album, and they had some success, teamed up with Green Day. I'm just going to see Unwritten Law tonight. They're
Yeah, I've seen Unwritten Law. I think I saw them open for Goldfinger at one point, believe it or not. Way back in the day. Yeah.
Unwritten Law is playing tonight, so I'm going to see them. A lot of bands actually tour here. I saw DRI the other day, and they're from Texas. I mean, there's just a lot of people come through San Diego. We'll skip LA, but the music scene in San Diego, I'm very, very into the music scene here. There's a band right now that I'm into, Fishing for Chips. They're really good. I mean, you have the bands like Blink, and I saw POD last year, or a couple years ago, and they opened for a band called Prophets of Rage. Have you guys heard Prophets of Rage?
Yes, heard of them. Wouldn't be able to identify a song if you played it, but I've
That's
heard
actually
them,
not true, because basically it's it's Public Enemy, it's Chuck D and Be Real from Cypress Hill.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, I'll go see him. I'm a big Cypress Hill guy. I'm a big Public Enemy fan. One of the best concerts I went to, and they do some Public Enemy covers. They cover all three bands. And I was never a big Rage guy, but I am a big Public Enemy guy. Was always a big Cypress Hill guy, and oh my word, they tore the roof off of that place, and I felt like it was a privilege to be there. But when you there's another band called Sucio. It's a guy I know. They're really funny, and there's a lot of concert halls around here. The Descendants come through here a lot. Bad Religion comes through quite a bit. Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, if you guys are into them, they always do a hilarious show as well. So, and I recommend seeing Me First and the Gimme Gimmes if you guys get a chance. But the music scene in San Diego, I think, is pretty big, and I wanted to be a part of it. But I have a car; I can't tote my drum set everywhere I go, so I got to get a van or something. And I'm not that good of a guitar player. So,
well, one other question, Michael. You know, I know you. Avid skateboarder, avid surfer. Have you seen that San Diego culture with kind of this Southern California lifestyle as you've gone to other concerts around the US? Do you see that exported? Is that something that was kind of, that used to be a specifically SoCal thing? Is it?
Well, so this one right here, I think when they put together the Warp Tour, I think his name was Kevin Weeks, put together the Warp Tour. And you guys would correct me. Brian will probably have to correct me on that one, since I told him about the Black. He was wrong about the Black album. But I really liked how they incorporated all these punk bands. Everybody had the Vandals, you had Pennywise, you had NoFX, Suicidal Tendencies, one of my all-time favorite bands, were involved in the Warp Tour. I saw the Tony Hawk Till the Wheels Fall Off the other day. He mentioned one of my favorite bands, the Toy Dolls. So it seemed like the punk culture did kind of go hand in hand with the skateboard. Uniform Choice was another band. They fell off in the late 80s. I put the two together because I happen to actually like both of them. And some people like peanut butter, some people like jelly. I just happen to like both of them at the same time. But I did go to a show a couple years ago. There's a professional surfer out there named Donovan Frankenreiter, and he wanted to make music. And he had an album release party, and he invited a few of his friends. The Billabong sponsors were there, and I got into that. And his music was pretty cool. The part that I liked the most, again, was the crowd, and he was really proud of himself. Would I buy his album? Would I listen to it? Probably not. But I had a great time being there, and it was a really, really good experience. And I don't know if he's a San Diego guy or not, but it was a really, really good experience because I like the fact that he was just proud of himself, and it wasn't something, music that was adverse to me.
It's super cool. And it's funny enough that apparently that you wouldn't think that professional surfer to musician pipeline would be very full, but between him and Jack Johnson, I guess it's not that unusual to make that switch. And both of them are pretty popular. I mean, Jack Johnson's very popular.
I was a big, I still am a big skater. That's my Lance Mountain skateboard right here, as you can see. But nice. Steve Caballero's in a band called Ignite, so he's touring right now, and his band's actually picking up some traction. And if I'm not wrong, I believe his band is opening for Goldfinger in the near future.
Really? That might be a show I might need to make an appearance at.
And so, because I'm going through a pretty big ska phase right now, and there's a band right now which I want the world to. They're called Sad Snacks. They are hilarious. I don't know where they're from, but I believe they're opening for Goldfinger right now. They're on tour, but they're not playing in California, unfortunately.
That's super cool.
Tommy Guerrero from the Bones Brigade, he's also in a band, and I've seen his band play. He doesn't have the exposure that Tony Hawk or Mike McGill have. He was the street skater. I like him overall. He was a really nice guy, but his band didn't really, they didn't, nothing flashy, acoustic guitar. They're okay. He's a better guitar player than me, but I see him more out of obligation.
Yeah. Still super cool. It's funny you mentioned earlier you go to those Christmas shows. For I think maybe 6 or 7 years in a row, I did the hometown throwdown for Mighty Mighty Bosstones. That was my between Christmas and New Year week tradition. And they've had a little bit of a fall from grace with Dickie Barrett and his anti-vax stuff. But they another ska band that put on a fucking insane show, and especially in Boston, people just go bananas for it. So that just made me think of it again. But yeah.
Yeah. And Michael, if you had to tell, you know, in a kind of last minutes here, our audience, our highly engaged audience, you would have to recommend like 3 bands that you just think that people have to see. I think you just mentioned one, the ska band. But what are those that you would just want to tell our audience? Like, hey guys, you got to go check them out or listen to these songs.
Right now, I would say Teenage Bottle Rocket, who are also touring right now. They do a hilarious show, and I love their music, and they're skaters as well. The Vandals, they still have a lot of juice. They do a great show. They're sober. They come out. They also, another band that always comes out, signs every autograph. And let's see here. I would say, oh man,
Well, you mentioned that ska band, the one I forgot the name.
Sad Snack.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them live yet, but I did just see a couple ska bands the other day. Sad Snack, their lyrics are really, really funny, and they're a small band. They just appeal to me. They're making me laugh. And they've got a song called the Kenny G Hold Line. And
wait. I want to hear about this. So Seth and I have a history with Kenny G, and then we want to.
Then you want to put this song on because it's funny because they're complaining about being on hold, and they're like, I'm already mad because I got to be on hold, and they're making me listen to Kenny G.
Yeah.
So the premise of it is really funny, but I know that you know, I go to a lot of big shows, and Teenage Bottle Rocket's always one of my absolute favorites that I go to. The Vandals, but I have a long history with the Vandals, and you're asking me for 3, so
no, that's good. Well, let me add one here that actually is a connection between you and Brian. Is you guys both introduced me to the Descendants, and Seth, I don't know if you know about this band, this punk band.
I do, yeah.
And that to me was just the paragon of punk when I first heard it, when Brian made me listen to it, and then Michael subsequently you told me about these guys. That, I mean, is that, are you still listening to those guys? Is that something
I still listen to? I haven't given up any of my old music. The Descendants, I think, are a great band, and I do not miss the Descendants. It's rare that I miss them. I've traveled very far to see the Descendants too, for not being a band that I've been into since I was 12 years old. I would say probably 15, 16, late teens, but I still listen to the Descendants. I still follow them. I just saw them on my birthday last year. They're not too crowd interactive, as in coming out, signing autographs, doing things like that. But they're always like very grateful. Thank you for doing those kind of things. And, you know, thank you very much. But I think they would get mobbed. But they sell out every show. And one of the things I'm starting to see, which I'm also really liking, is I'm seeing now our generation, they're taking their kids to these shows. So I'm starting to see that's why these shows are filling up, because they're buying tickets for them. They're buying tickets for their children, kids, infants. And, you know, I saw the Vandals, one of their Christmas shows right before COVID, and somebody had their infant, and I mean like 6-month-old infant with headphones in the pit at the front row, and the Vandals stopped the show and said, "We really appreciate, we're flattered, but we'll stop until you guys take this kid to the back of the room."
This is a baby. This is an infant.
This was an infant, 6 months old. So
is that legal? Oh man. Well, I know you have a variety of tattoos covering your body. What's the next one coming? What's the next band to grace?
Okay. Great question. Oh my!
And I hope it is Steely Dan. I noticed you don't have that one.
Dan. No, the Steely Dan. It's coming. It's coming. I just can't think of anything good to get.
I'll design it for you.
I am trying to. Can I show body parts on here?
You can. Yeah.
All right.
We're X-rated.
These pipes aren't registered, but right here, because I'm a drummer, I have Animal. He's a drummer from the Muppets. Yeah. And this is actually my Tom with the wood grains and everything, paid extra for that. But right here, my shoulder cap, what I want to get, I'm trying to get my guy to design it, is there's a song by the Dead Milkmen called Jellyfish Heaven. And this girl who I met your brother and I met last year in Atlantic City, she showed me her Jellyfish Heaven tattoo, but it was isolated and you could see everything. So I've already got some interference right here, but it was really cool. And I took a picture of it. And I said, "Do you mind if I copy this? I'll never see you again." And she was like, "Yeah, go ahead." So I took a picture. So that's going to be my next one. It's going to be a jellyfish with a halo on it. So
Wow.
For Jellyfish
That's
Heaven,
awesome. I was gonna suggest, I was like, you need a fourth Dead Milkman tattoo just to put a little space between you and her with two. You want to make sure that you are the leader in the clubhouse on that one.
Well, hers are, are a little bit different. So I got my Dead Milkman tattoo over here, which you can see. This one's actually my favorite. This is my favorite tattoo of all of them because it's actually a big lizard driving a bitchin' Camaro. And unfortunately, that shirt came out about 5 years ago, and they only did 300 of those shirts. I have a big lizard on this side. Don't tell anybody, but I now have two big lizards. So I have two big lizards and the Dead Milkman's emblem, whereas this girl's got different ones. And some of the other ones, she had the Eat Your Paisley album cover, and I was like, nah, I can live without that. But the Jellyfish Heaven's the one that really knocked me off my feet. So.
That's super awesome.
Seth, and,
So cool.
and where's your tattoo? Has any band graced your back?
I'll tell you what, I have 0 tattoos, and I've waffled on this a bunch. I've almost gotten one a handful of times, and now I'm subscribing to the no tattoos is like what having a tattoo used to be. That's what I tell myself, but really I'm just a big wimp is what it comes down to. I don't do needles. I'm a wimp. But
so your Steely Dan tattoo is a work in progress then, right?
It's
still being crafted in my head. So
well, and I gotta tell you, I think it was Michael who influenced my brother to get Boba Fett, the Star Wars character, on his back. That's the only rational reason. Seth, in our family, that was some big drama. My brother got a tattoo.
How old was you when that happened?
I don't know. I could hear my mom scream from miles away when she saw it.
But it's one of the best tattoos I've ever seen to this day. So
and we all blame Michael. Michael's the reason for all of that. So thank you. But on behalf of the Christ family, we say thank you. Well, listen, hey, Michael, first and foremost, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. We are really excited to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. This was great.
Well, I think now what we're going to do for our social media to promote this episode, we're just going to have to get some shots of these tattoos. So we're going to... Maybe your girlfriend can help take some pics or do some selfies, but we'll make sure to promote this and everyone else out there. Hey, if you have any questions for obviously Seth and I, but also for Michael as well, please send us a note. We're on all the social media platforms, and feel free to ask Michael anything. So Michael, we may be sending you some fan letters very soon.
That'd be great. I'll answer them.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, hey, Michael, we'll get you back out there and enjoy the nice San Diego weather on this weekend. And Seth, hopefully it's not too crazy over there.
It's fine.
I feel bad, Seth.
I'll probably be indoors most of the time, but you bastards in California enjoy yourselves.
That's natural sunlight coming in.
I'm about to hit Balboa Park, guys. So
enjoy.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, hey, everyone out there, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. See you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
See you, Michael.